The Red Raiders look to get a bounce-back win in the Big 12 against the Cincinnati Bearcats at the friendly confines of United Supermarkets Arena on Saturday afternoon. In today's video, we'll preview the game, discuss the history of these two programs, the must-watch matchups, odds, and I'll give my prediction. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast, reminding you, if you haven't already, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on all things Texas Tech men's basketball right here on the largest group of Texas Tech fans on YouTube. We're giving you daily videos surrounding Texas Tech football, Texas Tech men's basketball, whether it's in season or the off season. We've got you covered right here with the most engaging group of Texas Tech fans on YouTube right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, before we get into it, y'all know the deal by now when it comes to these preview videos. Let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for Cincinnati at number 15, Texas Tech. Both teams trying to get back in the win column after they had losses earlier this week. But let me know your score prediction as the Bearcats travel down to, Lubbock, Texas. For the first time in program history, they will face off as Big 12 foes. Now, let's set the scene in this one. It will be at United Supermarkets Arena at 5 p.m. Central Time. You can watch the game on ESPN+. You actually got Tom Crean as the analyst, the former Indiana coach, one of the more smart guys when it comes to analysts in the game. I actually really like him quite a bit in terms of his knowledge. He will be alongside Chuckie Kempf. Another solid name right there in the broadcasting game. But all right, let's talk about the history of these two programs right now. It's actually going to be the second all-time meeting between the Bearcats and the Red Raiders. The only other meeting between these two teams came back, a little while ago. If you were born, congratulations. I hope things are going well for you. Way back in 1961, where the Bearcats actually beat the Red Raiders 78-65 back on March 17th of 1961. Now, both teams are coming off of losses. As I mentioned, Cincinnati lost at West Virginia, Texas Tech losing at number 25 TCU. When it comes to the rankings, though, in terms of both key metrics that I look at in terms of where teams could be potentially seated in March Madness, I look at KenPom and then the net rankings. Right now in KenPom, Texas Tech is 27th. Cincinnati is 34th. Now, Cincinnati is also 34th in the net. The Red Raiders are 29th. So it's a little interesting to see where these teams rank. Cincinnati early on in Big 12 play, they were legitimately maybe 3 possessions away from being undefeated right there with Texas Tech. But instead, they are now 10th in the Big 12. Just the brutal. It's a brutal league, man. It's a brutal league. Okay, let's get to the players to watch for Texas Tech in this one. It starts with Warren Washington. Warren Washington is the most important player for Texas Tech in this game, bar none. And we'll talk about it a little bit more in my must-watch matchup here in just a little bit. But this is arguably the toughest task that Warren Washington has had to date in the Big 12. This is one of those teams in Cincinnati where they present a ton of mismatch issues in terms of their length at every position outside of maybe Day Thomas at the point guard position. But everybody else is a mismatch. And it starts with Warren Washington, and he's going to be pulled out onto the perimeter with their 6'11 center that has a sniper outside in terms of shooting 30%, but he can heat up. And we'll talk about him here in just a second. But this is going to be an absolutely critical game for Warren Washington to stay out of foul trouble, because if he does get into foul trouble, you saw glimpses of it, what happens with Texas Tech in the TCU game where they allowed a 21-5 run, mostly without Warren Washington not on the floor. It could be much of the same against the Bearcats of Cincinnati. Now, Joe Toussaint, I'm calling it right now. He's going to have a bounce-back game here. In the last 3 games, he's struggled for Texas Tech. He really hasn't been efficient. He's turned the ball over quite a bit, turned the ball over a lot at TCU. Grant McCasland said he was asking Joe to try new things because of the various looks that TCU was throwing at the Red Raiders. And, it led to 8 turnovers for the senior point guard for the Red Raiders. But I think he bounces back. I think his physicality and his aggressiveness to get to the rim could really pay off big for the Red Raiders. I'm expecting huge things from Joe Toussaint on Saturday evening. Now, Chance McMillan, can he stay in fuego? I mean, talk about an absolute heater for a guy that basically is a starter for Texas Tech. He's playing starter-type minutes, but he is coming off the bench right now for Texas Tech. Over the last 3 games, he's averaging 20 points per game. Let me repeat that. 20 points per game off the bench. Oh, and by the way, he's shooting 63.1% from 3. Absolutely in fuego right now. And now Chance McMillan's going to have to get in that 12 to 15 range, I think, for Texas Tech to beat the Bearcats at home. And we'll talk about the odds here in just a little bit. But you could argue right now, Chance McMillan is your second best scorer alongside Pop Isaacs, and almost want to see what you can do maybe with interchanging him and Kerwin, and even going small ball if the opportunity presents itself to get Warren some rest, because he's playing more minutes than any center in the Big 12 right now, and that includes Hunter Dickinson. Okay, so interested to see if they go potentially small. Maybe this isn't the matchup to do it unless the Bearcats get into foul trouble, but Chance McMillan has been absolutely in fuego right now for the Red Raiders. One more reminder before we get into the players to watch for Cincinnati, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell to join the largest Texas Tech group here on YouTube. Getting to about that 9,500 range, not too far away from 10K. We might get there by the time March Madness starts. Help us get there. Like the video, subscribe, and most importantly, turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on all things Texas Tech men's basketball all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel. All right, the players to watch with Cincy. It starts with VL. I mean, Victor Lakin is a stud. He is an absolute stud at the center position. The Russian big man for the Bearcats leads the Bearcats in points per game, rebounding, and blocks per game. Okay, he's 6'11". He can stretch the floor, albeit the shooting percentage from 3 doesn't look great, but he's a guy that makes your big get away like a Warren Washington and just creates things in terms of lanes and opportunities that are much easier to get to the rim, finish through contact if need be, or just get open looks for the Bearcats. He's a guy that I'm watching this one because I truly believe Warren Washington's going to have his hands full with Victor on Saturday. I truly believe that is going to be a must-watch matchup, in my opinion. Maybe not the most, must-watch matchup in this one, but that's going to be a good one and an underrated one in the Big 12 overall. The next guy is Dan Skillings Jr. He's their bucket getter. That's what he is, and it's his second year playing for Wes Miller. He's a true sophomore. Didn't really play a ton last year in terms of, if you look at the production, he averaged around 5.5 points per game. But he's a 6'6" guard that is second in scoring on this Bearcats team. He can do it off the bounce. He can create his own shots. And most importantly for the Bearcats, he's just a matchup nightmare. He's 6'6", as I mentioned, and a guy that just really creates mismatches for smaller guards. And Texas Tech does have that. I'm curious to see who they throw at him. If I had to guess, I would say Kerwin Walton. But how does that present itself in terms of Warren Washington not being there to arguably protect Skillings potentially beating Kerwin Walton, off the bounce? It's going to be fascinating to watch. Now, Mr. Do-It-All for the Bearcats, in my opinion, from the games that I've seen, is John Newman III. He's a guy that best defender, in my opinion, best shooter that's currently healthy right now for the Bearcats. He's shooting 36.4%. I think he is on Pop Isaacs. He's 6'5". I think they're going to throw their best defender and arguably the best scorer at the guard position in the Big 12 right now in Pop Isaacs. That's a matchup that I'm watching, but it's not the most must-watch matchup in this game. By far, it's got to be rebounding. And yes, I know I sound like Captain Obvious in this one, but Cincinnati is averaging 7 more rebounds per game than Texas Tech. They have a ton of length. This is going to have to be a group effort for Texas Tech. They're going to have to prioritize getting the rebound before transition, in my opinion, if they're going to want to actually beat Cincinnati. I love what Wes Miller is doing with the Bearcats. They've had some struggles their first year in the Big 12, but as I mentioned previously, they were really 3 possessions away from being 5-0 to start conference play. Now you're in 10th. It's just how brutal this conference is. Texas Tech is going to have to prioritize the boards in this one, unlike what they did against TCU before they get out in transition. That's what's going to have to happen. Somebody's going to have to step up and help Warren Washington on the boards. It's going to be interesting to see who that is. Maybe it's Chance McMillan, who had a career-high 8 rebounds against Oklahoma. He's the most athletic guard Texas Tech has, so maybe he's the answer, but somebody's going to have to step up and help Warren Washington on the boards. All right, Cincinnati at number 15, Texas Tech odds, according to Bart Torvart, Texas Tech is a 5.5-point favorite at home, and Texas Tech has a 71% chance of winning this game. You see my prediction at the bottom of the screen right there. I have Texas Tech winning this one 81-72 over the Bearcats of Cincinnati. I think Texas Tech just does some home cooking. They get back on track. They play a lot better at the United Supermarkets Arena. I think the crowd is going to be rowdy, proud, and loud there out in the 806, and I think Texas Tech stays relatively close to the top of the Big 12 with a victory over the Bearcats. Now, before you head out of here, let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below for Cincinnati at number 15, Texas Tech. Again, both teams trying to get back in the win column here. This is a big one. If Cincinnati loses, they've got some big-time games coming up, including Houston and Iowa State. It could get bad real fast for the Bearcats. So this is arguably a must-win game. And when it comes down to the Texas Tech side of it, it's arguably a must-win game because you have to protect home court in the Big 12 because of how difficult it is to win on the road. So let me know your score prediction for Cincinnati at number 15, Texas Tech. Mine is 81-72. Let me hear from y'all down below. And before you head out of here, like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on all things Texas Tech men's basketball right here on the largest group of Red Raiders on YouTube. Of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.